everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stitch Sessions. Today I'm going to be doing a little follow-up tutorial based on one of the last Crochet Quick Chats we had, all about whether or not you really needed to count your stitches. So I'm going to discuss the importance of counting your stitches and how it helps to prevent things like this happening. So you can see my edges are not straight at all. And this is very common among newer crocheters. So I'm going to talk about that. So let's dive in. So the importance of counting your stitches is for the sake of consistency and to prevent things like this from happening. So most commonly, the first project that maybe a newer crocheter is going to start working on is maybe a scarf or a blanket, something with straight edges or supposedly straight edges, okay? So in this case, we had an initial stitch count of 14 stitches. So what we did here is using double crochets. We chained 3 for the height of our stitch. Whoops, I'm on this side. So we chained 3 to get the height of a double crochet, and then we proceeded to double crochet into each stitch across. But what I have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. My apologies, I started off with 13 stitches. So I have an extra stitch. Now, one of the first things that happens that's very common is we place too many stitches into the row. And you're thinking, but how on earth would that happen? So you've got all of your stitches here. It all seems to line up except for this beginning here. So if you notice, we have our chain 3 and then we have our first double crochet going right into that very first stitch. Now, for those of you that haven't seen this tutorial, I'm going to put a link down below and as well probably one up here on the cards, all about identifying parts of your stitch. And we talked a lot about how this very first space here, this actually belongs to the bottom of this chain 3. So because the chain 3 represents the height of a double crochet, it actually represents a double crochet. So if you stitch back into this first stitch, you are now doing what we call an increase, meaning you're increasing the number of stitches in this row or into this stitch. So generally speaking, when you've chained 3, you want to not go into that one, and you would just continue on into all the following ones. And therefore, if we had done that at the beginning, we would still have our count of 13 stitches, okay? So that's the first thing you wanna be careful, is you don't wanna go right into that very first stitch after the chain 3. So we've come to the end of our row here, and we've chained 3 and we've turned our work, okay? So far so good. You know, if we pull that apart, this chain 3 is sitting on top of that double crochet. Looks pretty good. And so this time you see what happened. We chained 3 and we left that first stitch empty, which is what we should do. So this belongs to the chain 3. And then we went into the next stitch and double crocheted. So see, that stitch is now sitting, or the double crochet is sitting on top of that stitch. Chain 3 sits on top of this one. Okay, so now we started correctly. All good, all good. We went down. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so we have the right number of stitches based on what we needed at the beginning, but we've got this funny little bump here. And why that happens, and let's say you said, well, it says to start with 13, but I have 13. Don't forget, if you added an extra one at the bottom on the first row, then that's going to throw off the look on the next section. So even though you had the correct number of stitches you should have had at the beginning, we've got this situation here. Now, what happened here is when we did the chain 3, that does count as a stitch. And if you notice, we did a double crochet into the last official stitch, and then we just proceeded to go into the next row. But this is most often the other reason why people's sides end up bumpy, because they did not work into that last chain 3. Okay, so you want to find the top of the chain 3, and we should have worked a double crochet into there. So hopefully that makes sense. So we should have double crocheted into there. So moving up, then we chain 3, we turned our work. So see already, now we've got this bump happening here, and we'll have more bumps coming up along the way. So we've chained 3, and again, we did the same boo-boo. See, we chained 3, and then we went right back into that same stitch. So again, it's creating an extra number of stitches there, so we really want to avoid that. We did our double crochets. We came to the end, the last stitch, and again, look at this. The chain 3 was skipped. So you see, now you've got this bump that's happening. So, you know, you need to count, and it's important to understand where to place your stitches, especially at the ends, right? And then of course we did our chain 3, we turned our work, and we didn't go into there, so that's good, that's all good, and we made it to the end. Now this one almost looks great, except one thing that happened here. See this? Instead of going into the stitch, we stitched into the space. This is another thing I see happen a lot, is we just stitch into the space and think, oh, it's all groovy. But the problem is we still skipped one stitch. So we should have worked into this one, and then, remember this is a chain 3, you want to work into the third chain or the top of that chain 3. So you see, it's really, really, you know, again, it's a personal preference. If you don't mind these jagged edges, then this tutorial is not for you. But if you would like to have really nice straight edges, then you have to really be aware, number 1, of your stitch count, and number 2, where you are placing your stitches based on the previous row. Okay, so you see we just went into the space there, then of course we chained 3, we turned, and so now, and we stitched across, and of course again the last chain 3 was forgotten. Okay, so those are kind of the main reasons why this situation happens. And then sometimes people get a project that goes out this way, or they can't understand why, you know, it called for 14 stitches, but all of a sudden, you know, at the end of the project I have 20 or I have 12 stitches. So let's show you how to keep your edges super straight by counting and making sure we remember exactly where to place our stitches. Okay, so we're bringing in our trusty yellow yarn here, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. And so we're going to begin with a slip knot, and this is just a sample, but this is most commonly the way you would begin most flat projects. So we'll start with a chain of 10. So 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 10 chains here. Now, many times if you're doing single crochets to start, you're going to start by going into the second chain from the hook. So what'll happen is that last chain will become our turning chain. So you see that kind of bends upward, and we will place a single crochet into the next stitch. And I'm going to do that all the way across. So what you'll notice, even though you were asked to chain 10, your consistent stitch count will now become 9. And that's because that 10th one, we used it to kind of bend up and turn. Okay. I'm going in the last one here. Okay, so your work would look something like this. We've worked into all the chains, and see how this one dips down a little bit? That's where our chain 1 is. So we have 1, and I like to always start counting from the loop backwards. It's just a thing I have. And if I get to the end, sometimes I can see where the turning chain is, and if I'm really missing one, then I know I goofed somewhere. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you see that is 9. So that was our 10th chain. So now we know, see, there it is right there. Okay, so now we know our consistent stitch count should remain at 9 if we want to create straight edges. So let's go ahead and let's use double crochets just to kind of make it a little bit easier to see, but the principle would be the same whether it was doubles or singles. So let's chain 3 like we had done in the sample, and we're going to turn our work. So now chain 3, this will represent a double crochet. So each stitch now will have a base to it, which is the loop of the previous row. Okay, so this is the previous row, this is the back now. So I will not go into this first space. That is the general rule. Okay, if you want to keep a straight edge, I am going to go into the next space. So I would say that we are going into the second stitch from the base of your chain 3. Okay, so I call this the base here. So I'm going to yarn over and insert here. Okay, and at first it'll be a little bit kind of gapy in here. That's totally normal. Okay, and now it's actually, you know, it's okay because you can see the stitches, and you're just going to double crochet your way to the end of the row. Okay, so I've got one more stitch there. And you can kind of see we still have to find one more spot to place a stitch in, otherwise we have this tail here. Now that's the chain 1, so it makes it a little bit trickier to figure out where we're going to place our stitches, but if you're ever in doubt, first thing you want to do is go back and count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I know there should be 9 stitches in this row. So yep, there's that chain 1. Okay, so you just have to make sure that you look for it, and I'm going to make sure that I pick up those 2 loops there, just like that, and enter the double crochet. Okay, so you see now that little tail there straightened itself out. Okay, so far we've got 9 stitches from the first row, 9 stitches in the second. Our edge is fairly straight. This one's bowing a bit because the chain is a little bit kind of more loosey-goose than the actual stitch, but once we turn over, this will start to straighten out. So let's turn over and let's see what's going to happen here. So this is kind of how you want to continue on further rows. So in this case, I'm just doing, you know, double crochets all the way across. But depending on what the stitch is, the most important thing is that you pay attention to where you're placing your stitches, okay? So we're going to chain 3 to get to the height, and now we're going to turn our work. So see how that chain 3 just continues right up on top of the previous double crochet. So again, if I pull my work apart, this first loop, you see, this has become the base of this chain 3. I do not work into that. I go into the loop of the next stitch, okay? And I'll go into there. And I'll double crochet. Okay, again, you're going to have that little loopy look at the beginning. That's okay. Some people, in fact, prefer to chain 2. It's a personal preference. I like to chain 3. I know a lot of people chain 3. If you are a tight crocheter, definitely chain 3, okay? If you find yourself super loose as a stitcher, then only chain 2, but I think chain 3 is the most common. Okay, and then you would continue across the row. This is pretty straightforward. 1 into each stitch, so they're a little bit easier to see here. Okay, so this is my last stitch here, my last official stitch. And this is where sometimes people get into trouble. So it kind of looks like it's not the end, but at the same time, it doesn't look squared off here. Remember how this creates a little bowed out effect? So sometimes people go, it doesn't look quite right, but I can't seem to find a stitch, so I must be done. Rule number 1, if you're unsure, count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're missing 1, okay? So this is the chain 3. We should always place a stitch. Find the top of that chain 3. That's where you're going to place a stitch. A lot of times too, a boo-boo that happens is instead of kind of finding the top of the chain 3, people might get frustrated or just can't find it, and they'll just go into the space, which you can do, but you see, first of all, it creates a gap here, and you never get that nice straight edge. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, okay? I really, really would strongly recommend, I'm yarning over here, to really look and find the top of that chain 3. Sometimes I even have to turn it over this way. So I have 1, 2, and 3. You're looking for those V's, right? So there's the top of that V. I'm going to insert my hook, and that is where I'm going to place my final stitch. Okay. So now see, I had previously stretched it out, so it's there. But you see, now it's sitting a lot more flush on top of that chain 3. There we go. So the edge is a little bit straighter. Again, this first one here is always a little bit bowed. But now we're starting to have a much straighter look. Okay, so I'm going to go again. And this is how you would continue on. So if you're just doing a nice, easy project with double crochets or anything really, in this case double crochet, because you may do other things in the center, maybe only have double crochets at the end, this principle would be the same. So I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and remember, this belongs to the chain 3. We don't want to crowd it in there. Go into the second stitch from the base, okay, or the stitch right next to the base of the chain 3. So I always call this little bottom here the base of the chain 3. Do not go in there, okay? Go into the next one. Okay, so then again, you have a little bit of a rounded edge there. That's okay. And continue as usual. 1 into each stitch. Okay, now I do have a little hint here that you can do as well. If you really, some people like the idea of crocheting and just mindlessly watching some television or a movie. And once they count the first row, they really don't want to be counting. So kind of similar to knitting. Once you cast on the proper number, it should all work out, right? So here's a little kind of hack that you can do. You can use a marker, a stitch marker of any kind. I just like using a safety pin. Okay, so I use this marker to help me know where my last stitch is, or my first. So for example, when I did this chain 3, what I would recommend you do is place a stitch marker there so that when you come back, it'll remind you, hey, you still got to go into the top of your chain 3. Okay, so for example, if I had done that one back here, 1, 2, 3, and placed a marker here, oops. Now I never have to count again because you're always going to have a marker telling you where to go. So here I am. I'm into this stitch here. And I've got one more stitch before that marker. And, okay, yeah, there's my marker. And that's where I need to go into. You see that? It's just waiting for me. I don't even have to count anymore. I just know that's where I need to go. Okay, but once I've gone into it, I need to take this out from this row because that one's done. And now when I chain 3 for the next one, I'll turn my work. I'm going to skip this one here and go into the next one. And then what I will do is I will immediately replace my marker not into this one, right? Because this is the double crochet. I'm going to go into the chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. See that V right there? So I put my marker in there. Whoops. And now I don't have to think about it. Okay. So you can see again, there you go. See your edge here? Way different than this one here, right? Like this one actually looks like a stair step. And that's basically it, guys. So, I mean, I'll take you to the end of this row here, but hopefully this has given you a little bit more clarity on how to keep your edges straight. And I definitely have been dealing with this with some of my newer crochet students in our online class. By the way, if you're interested, we are doing a weekly interactive online crochet class where you can ask me questions live and I can see what you're doing and you can see what I'm doing. And I'll put some info for that down below. But yeah, this is the most common thing that I come across when working with newer crocheters. And I really wanted to kind of take the time to show you how to really be aware of where to place your stitches. Okay, so here's the next full stitch that's there. Insert. And now I know there's a marker here, so I know, okay, I've got one more to go. And it's just a great little reminder, and sometimes if it's in the way, you can just take it out now. And then work into the top of that chain. And then of course you'll chain 3 and continue on, and always replace the marker. So if you replace the marker, you will never go wrong. Okay, so you see every time you work on top of the chain 3, it does straighten out. So it's always that last one that has that little bowed effect. So again, I'm going to bring back my other little buddy here. So hopefully you can see a big difference. Let me just get rid of that. A big difference between our straighter edges here and the ones where we weren't counting and we weren't paying attention where we were placing our stitches. Okay, so hopefully that gives you all a lot more clarification on how to keep your edges straight. Counting is the key, and I know those of you that don't like counting, sorry. But again, I find that the stitch markers are very, very useful. All right. If you have any further questions on this or any other crochet related items, please do feel free to drop them in the comment box down below or email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. You know, you can always find me on Instagram as well at The Stitch Sessions, and check out our monthly newsletter. We've always got some tips and tricks in there for you as well. And like I said, we have an online interactive live crochet class. If you'd like to take part in that, definitely get in touch with us, and I'd love to see you online. And don't forget to press that subscribe button if you haven't already, if you are enjoying these tutorials, some of our crochet conversations, or Crochet Quick Chat. It's free, and it's a great way to keep you up to date every time we upload a new video, which is every Wednesday morning. And this way, you'll stay up to date and you'll see all the latest crochet shenanigans we're up to. So that's it for today. Hope it was short and sweet and to the point. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and happy crocheting. Take good care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Take care.